It's Seeing Red, the New York Soccer Roundup. Since 2010, your weekly source for independent New York Red Bulls news and opinion. Now, from the Joe Goldstein studio, here's your host, Mark Fishkin.
It's Mark Fishkin here with you after week one of the MLS regular season. Very, very exciting to be talking Seeing Red and New York Red Bulls soccer once again. We have a game review. We have a game preview. We've got Gustavo Guimaraes here. Gustavo, how are you?
Mark, how are you? I've been pretty good. It's always a pleasure for being here once again.
Awesome. Fantastic. The 2025 season is off to a start. I don't know about a flying start, but nevertheless, please subscribe. Do the subscribing piece. Really, really important. We appreciate all of you who have subscribed to Seeing Red on YouTube. All right, the Red Bulls have a momentary lapse on defense, and they lose to FC Cincinnati 1-0. They have the home opener this Saturday against Nashville. It's very exciting. Tonight on Seeing Red, we'll go inside that loss at Cincinnati. What does it mean for New York? How did they play? Is there a reason for hope? Some Red Bull fans on social media think this is the apocalypse. It is not, folks. We'll give our Bulls of the night. We'll preview Nashville SC coming into Sports Illustrated Stadium for the first time on Saturday night. Ben Wright of 615 Soccer in Nashville is our guest. And then we have some match reaction. So, Gustavo, let's just get right into it. Little bit of surprise for the Red Bulls that Omar Valencia is the choice to start at left back. I thought that Cincinnati did a good job trying to pinpoint him as the weak link of the Red Bulls defense. And I know that Sandro and the team has a ton of confidence in the young guy. How did you think he did?
I think he did okay. I'm not going to say he was outstanding or something else, but he did okay. I'm not concerned about his performance. I think overall he was good. I'm excited for Sandro opting for him because I think he gives a lot of energy going up forward. But overall, a good performance. Nothing to be complaining about.
There were a few times in the first half when I noticed that he was getting closed down really quick, that perhaps Valencia was a step too slow or a second too slow to get the ball off his foot. And obviously, for anyone making your first big MLS start on the road, maybe the moment's a little big for you. And to be fair, I mean, Cincinnati has spent $16 million to bring in their big striker, Eric Denke, who winds up getting the goal against the Red Bulls. Kevin Denke, excuse me. But I just thought it could have been a little quicker. I think he and the Red Bulls got better as the first half went on. While certainly the possession battle was just about even through most of this game, it seemed as if it really was about the 25-minute mark on in the first half. New York felt a little more comfortable. They were able to hold the ball and possess. We saw some great long-range shots from Cam Harper, who I thought played very, very well on the night. You really got the sense, though, that it's going to take a little bit of time until Morgan and Forsberg and Chupo really have built their partnership together.
Yes, in football, in American football, we call it growing pains. So I think it's the case for Omar Valencia because he's not playing with youngsters anymore. He's in the pros, and things will be fine.
Yeah. Again, Harper with a big shot. New York actually held Cincinnati, even though the possession was about even. Cincinnati did not take a shot until the 44th minute of the match when Pavel Buka had a shot blocked. New York, I didn't honestly think Chupo's first shot for New York would come on a back heel, but nevertheless, that's what we saw. I said on Blue Sky, I think Fabio is somewhere smiling, but I guess the question is, what did you think of Chupo's first appearance in the New York uniform?
Well, he displayed a case of ability. Obviously, it would have been a very nice goal to start his score sheet with the Red Bulls. Overall, I think if he had kept looking forward to the goal instead of giving his back,
yes,
he could have done a better job. But it is what it is now.
Second half, New York again with the majority of the shots, not all of them great, but nevertheless, a wild sequence with the ball bouncing around the Cincinnati box. Chupo actually offside. Forsberg goes off the bar, which didn't count. But nevertheless, there's a free kick for Cincinnati. As Schwartz said it, there was a little bit of confusion on the back line of who was marking whom. DeAndre Edlin floats a ball really nicely into Denke. Perhaps Coronel's a half step too slow to come off his line. The ball's popped right over him. It was a moment that seemed, frankly, kind of disconnected from the rest of the match. It was just such a different feel to that one moment. And then, with 20 minutes to play, I just don't think New York is thinking about how they could do something different to break down a Cincinnati team that pulled way back and just held on for the victory.
Yes. I have an example of, I watched that play a couple of times, and it does bother me that Coronel he hesitated too much of going forward. Yeah. And if he does, you have to go up and on a more stronger manner. You go over there, you try to hit the ball and you do something different, and it wasn't the case. But there's something else. I think Hack was very slow. Now we know he's not a speedy center back. If somehow he has to run behind trying to catch wingers or fast strikers, we're going to be in trouble this season. So that was my main concern after watching that goal a couple of times. Coronel's fault, clearly. He does have a lot of credit too, but it wasn't pretty. It wasn't a nice thing to see.
Yeah, I mean, it was a breakdown, and I think that post-game Schwartz was very, very clear. Yeah, we fell asleep for a second, and they punished us, and that's what happened. The thing for me, one of the things I took away from this match, here you have kind of the old guard, and it's really strange to think about Lewis Morgan being part of the old guard, but nevertheless, Morgan and Forsberg and Chupo all went 90 minutes, which on the one hand is a good thing, but when you think about who New York had A, on the bench, and B, chose to bring in, again, they conceded with 20 minutes left. Schwartz waits another 10 minutes and then brings on Julian Hall and Felipe Carvalho, who's working his way back to full fitness, for Hack and Peter Stroud. And they changed the formation and they changed the lineup and they put on offense for defense. New York, and then Wiki came on with 5 minutes to play. It felt for me as if New York didn't really have, they didn't really have a difference maker to come off the bench and to really rattle the Cincinnati defense. And the changes that were made were not necessarily, didn't really provide New York a massive lift as they were fighting to get the equalizer. Yes, Cincinnati was sitting back, but at the same time, you didn't really feel like, oh, good, here comes this player that's going to lift the New York attack, especially when the three forward players stayed on the whole game. It just seemed a little strange to me.
Yes, let's be honest. We don't have a super sub as of now.
Right.
There's no Hall is a prospect. He hasn't been proven yet. We do expect a lot of things from him. The other striker was not available, Bogax. I would love to see him playing too. But until everybody gets up to fit, healthy, we will struggle when it comes to subbing players in the during the second half.
Yeah. And again, you obviously want to give your team the best possible opportunity to score and take a lead in the match. So you're starting your big guns, but there were little guns left on the bench. So, all right. So overall, was there something that worked particularly well that you liked? Maybe something that didn't work particularly well that you didn't like?
I didn't like the duo in the midfield. I didn't like Edelman and Stroud. I think they slowed the pace a couple of times when things needed to be faster. And I think Carvalho needs to be a starter as soon as possible when he gets 100%. No questions about it. But it's a problem that Schwartz needs to address. If you want someone with more man marking power, then he goes with Edelman. But Stroud has a better quality when it comes to passing. Me personally, I would put Edelman in the back in the bench and go with Carvalho and Stroud.
Evander absolutely skinned Edelman late in the game, and no one likes to see that. Cincinnati fans, after I made a comment about being so thankful that Lucia Acosta is no longer with the team, said, "Yeah, but we're getting Evander, and you're not going to like him either." So, I mean, those two players definitely lifted Cincinnati, and by all accounts, makes them a contender for the East this year.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, I don't think losing by a single goal off a set piece away is enough to bring me to pessimism over what we're going to see. It's one game, and yes, every game counts, and you always want the points. And would a 1-1 draw or a 0-0 draw would have been a little fairer? Perhaps, but you have to give it to Cincinnati. They're playing at home. Cincinnati hasn't beaten New York in Cincinnati very often. It was only the second ever win that FCC had over the Red Bulls at their place. And Cincinnati hasn't really performed terribly well in home openers. So again, I don't think it's a major reason for concern. I think watching the team play live, I agree with you 100%, Gustavo, about Edelman and Stroud not really being a force. And that's why you saw Valencia being so involved up the wing, Cam Harper being so involved up the wing, because the ball wasn't going through the midfield. It just wasn't. It was going out wide and then worked its way back in. Good to see Wiki, I guess, come on, and he did. New York took some long shots late in the game. For my money, you wanted to get a little bit closer, but I thought Hack, other than that moment, I thought played very well in his first professional competitive match with the Red Bulls. Yes, he took down Evander outside the box. I think you have to do that in that situation because he had already moved right through Edelman, and you take the yellow card there, and I hope you can defend, which New York did. Really like Cam Harper, and I really liked, and that rolls really nicely into Bull of the Match. I really liked Lewis Morgan continuing to run in the 90th minute for him as much as for the Red Bulls, right? Much has been made. He was a comeback player of the year in 2024, but I thought he did an incredible job all match long. Obviously you want a goal, but the fact that he was fit and still going and still working at the end of the match, I thought was terrific. Who was
even Shopu too during the second half? He nutmegs someone and he runs. The kick wasn't very strong, but I think for someone that hasn't played in a long time too, we have to remember that it was nice to see him performing during the whole game.
Yeah, sounds good. So Bull of the Match, who is your choice, sir?
My choice would be Cam Harper, especially for his first half.
Yeah, I thought he played very well. I'm going to give mine to Lewis Morgan. Again, I thought really leading by example, being super fit, making it go. I agree that Cam played very well, and he has earned his starting spot. I think it's a question of how can New York make some subtle adjustments, taking a very defensive-minded Nashville FC squad this weekend, and that leans very well into what we are going to see this Saturday night for the first time in a competitive match at Sports Illustrated Stadium, which sounds very strange. Let's get into what we have to see with both the Red Bulls and Nashville SC. This week's opponent, Nashville SC, had a scoreless home draw against New England on Saturday night in Nashville. Obviously, no goals for, none against. Last year was not great for Nashville. 9, 16, and 9 for 36 points. They missed the playoffs for the first time in a number of years. They scored 38 times in 34 games. That's not good enough. Gary Clark, their longtime coach, their first coach, gets shown the door. Ventnor, New Jersey's own B.J. Callahan of the U.S. men's national team comes in and starting to make some changes. Nashville was a dreadful road team in 2024. They were tied for 28th, which if you do the math, last year there were 29 teams. That means you're dead last in the league in goals per match. They were also last in possession in the final third per match last year, and they were tied for 27th in MLS in yellow cards accumulated, with 59 in 38 games. So very physical, didn't score goals, allowed a ton. They weren't a good team. A ton of changes under B.J. Callahan. Here's who has come in. Ahmed Kassem, a 21-year-old left wing from Sweden, from Elfsborg, for $3.5 million. Matthew Corcoran, and we're going to talk about Corcoran with Ben Wright during the next segment. 19 years old, from Birmingham Legion of the USL. You do not see a lot of USL players take the step up to MLS, and Corcoran may be a diamond in the rough. Jetson Palacios from Colombia signed on a free. Brian Schweiky from Castellon in Spain is an American, came over as a backup goalkeeper. Brian Acosta, who's a known quantity in this league, $1.1 million from Real España in Honduras. Andy Nahar, the former DC United youth product, is now 31 years old. He came from Olympia, also in Honduras. Gaston Brugman, who started against the Red Bulls for the LA Galaxy in MLS Cup, 32-year-old Uruguayan, comes over for $1.7 million. Edvard Tagseth from Norway joins. Here's who's gone from this team, and there are names that you should know. Randall Leal, who had played so well, is now at DC United. He and Hani Mukhtar a few years ago were deadly for Nashville. Shaq Moore went to FC Dallas. Sean Davis, our friend and former Red Bulls captain, who was famously wooed by Nashville a number of years ago, didn't really fit B.J. Callahan's plans anymore. 32 years old, Sean Davis is now. He went to the Galaxy, who cut him. He is currently looking for work. Very, very strange. Annabelle Godoy, MLS lifer for various teams, is now with San Diego FC. He left. He's 35 years old. So a lot of change for Nashville, and they continue to work it out. And this is really all about, for Nashville, the theme is it's a new era. Ever since Nashville came in MLS, they were tough to break down. Defensive unit under English coach Gary Smith. But with Nashville seemingly regressing, they decided to make a change and brought in former USA assistant B.J. Callahan toward the end of last season, and his arrival have coincided with a change in style. While Nashville has maintained their rigid defensive structure, the hiring of Callahan has coincided with a more attack-minded team. Nashville slightly edging the possession numbers against New England in their scoreless draw on opening day. So it really is the Callahan show, and we'll see what that looks like in New York. These teams have played 7 times. This will be the 7th all-time meeting, and I'm going to say this on the show, and just because I say this, point of fact, doesn't have any bearing on what might happen on Saturday. The Red Bulls have never lost to Nashville. Never, ever. They're 2-0-4 all time. The last time these teams met, it was, to the surprise of few, a scoreless draw in New York on June 15th. And in fact, Nashville hasn't scored against the Red Bulls in 3.5 years. Nashville hasn't scored against New York since November 7th of 2021. That's nearly 400 minutes. Because these teams don't usually score a lot of goals against each other, the all-time leading scorer against Nashville is Fabio, and I guarantee you that is the only team where we can make that claim. Kyle Duncan has a single goal against Nashville as well. Let's take a look at what the lineup might look like on Saturday against the Red Bulls. Joe Willis, Red Bull fans know who he is. He remains in net. He's 36 years old, 52 goals against last year. The back line, if it's 5 in the back, Dan Lovitz, MLS lifer, longtime Toronto, last year with 33 games. Jack Marr, a young American with a goal last year. Walker Zimmerman, the U.S. international, holding down the center of the Nashville defense with a goal and assist. Wyatt Meyer, 24-year-old American. Then there's on the right side, there's Andy Nahar, who has moved from an attacking player to more of a wingback player. In the central midfield, Edward Tagseth from Norway, 5 goals and 3 assists last year with Rosenborg. Matthew Corcoran, again, 19-year-old with an assist, and I think a very exciting player for Nashville. Our old friend and Timothy Chalamet, childhood friend of is Alex Mouille, who continues at age 29 to be an important player for Nashville. 5 goals and 2 assists last year. You'll hear Ben Wright say how high he is on him. Hani Mukhtar took a massive step back in 2024, 9 goals and 9 assists, which is a massive step back. And a lot of that is because Sam Surridge gives Nashville another dimension, 15 goals and 9 assists. So, Gustavo, there are players that the Red Bulls absolutely know, players that have been very impactful in MLS in the past. Nashville is still trying to figure out who they are and what they're trying to do. What's your thought on what we might see Saturday night in Harrison? I'll say that the Red Bulls and Nashville.
I'm expecting a match without many goals. Obviously, it's something hard to say, but if you go 2 years ago, this was also our home opener, a scoreless draw, in which, if I remember correctly, Lewis Morgan got injured, and I hope it doesn't happen again. I'll gladly take a 1-0 win over them, because we know how difficult it's going to be. If Shopo can score, fine. If Lewis can score, I'll take it too. If I'm waiting for you with this lineup, and I'm thinking if somehow that would be our team, the Red Bulls, and whoever they brought in as reinforcements, we'll be complaining so much over here, more than we do. So yeah, I hope for the best, as always, and I expect the Red Bulls 1-0, fine. And Fabio, our old friend Fabio, now is in Bolivia.
Wow. Okay.
So I'll take a 1-0 win.
Yeah, any team that has Hani Mukhtar and Sam Surridge connected to it can score goals, and they struggled so mightily last year. It'll be interesting what Carvalho, if in fact he can start, what kind of impact he can make. Again, New York desperately missed him in MLS Cup last year. It would have made a massive, massive difference if he was able to play. I'd like to think home cooking. I don't necessarily have a sense of the crowd. There are a lot of interesting things happening before the game at Red Bull Arena. There's LED light giveaways for the first 15,000 fans. They're going to do the red carpet and welcome the team at 5:45. So
the trophy roll.
Yes, they're going to show the Eastern Conference trophy. Okay. All right.
Oh, I like any kind of hardware.
Any kind of hardware. Okay. Even a semifinal win kind of hardware. I'll call it a 1-1 draw just to be different. I think that perhaps Lewis Morgan gets on the board and maybe Sam Surridge gets on the board, and we'll see. Before we go to break, thoughts on the new kits and how they looked on the field?
Loved it.
You did?
At first, I thought it was strange for the leaks we've seen on social media, but then on the field, I loved it.
Okay. I liked them so much better than the yellow kits, which they've replaced. A massive, massive improvement. But that's all I'll say there. That's all.
It gives. I kind of have that military feeling watching those guys on the field, so I liked it.
All right. When we're back on Seeing Red, we're going to talk to Ben Wright of 651 Soccer. So please, won't you keep it here, and we'll be right back. Back on Seeing Red, the New York Soccer Roundup. It is so exciting to be doing a game preview. And Red Bulls in Nashville have played a lot of interesting games with very, very few goals and scored over their history. And when I think about Nashville SC, I think about the man behind the new 615 Soccer, and that's Ben Wright. Ben, welcome back to Seeing Red. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Mark. Thanks for having me on. It's always a fun time.
It certainly is. Nashville hasn't scored against New York in a very long time. And I know that Nashville has had some challenges scoring goals. What gives Nashville fans optimism that this year will be different? Because they didn't score last week in their opener against New England.
Yeah, I think the short answer is BJ Callahan. He came in and promised more attacking soccer. It didn't result in goals against the Revs, but I think if you just kind of look at how they played and the chances that they created, it was better than what they had seen a lot under Gary Smith, especially at the kind of last year where things started to go bad. But yeah, still work to do. I think it's still a work in progress. They were still more reliant on crossing than they would like to be. I mean, BJ Callahan kind of admitted that afterwards. So I think still some growing pains here, but I think early signs are promising, if not like the final product yet.
Talk to us a little bit about everything that is different under Callahan. A New Jersey native, Ventnor, New Jersey, very exciting. Obviously came to prominence with his run with the U.S. men's national team in the in-between times between Greg and Polk. But like, I'm just kind of curious, like, what's the vibe like there? I mean, Gary Smith, obviously a known quantity in MLS. A kind of a typical defense first English coach. I'm just kind of curious what it's been like around the team now with Callahan there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very different, almost polar opposite. And that's not to take away anything from Gary Smith, because I think he did a fantastic job with an expansion team. He kind of laid the foundations that I think Callahan is coming in and benefiting from. But this is really just kind of the next step forward. I mean, you can't talk about what Callahan's doing right without kind of framing it in the context of what Nashville did not do well before he got here. So they didn't play very proactive soccer. They were usually, even at home, they tended to kind of be reactionary. They sat deep, they let the other team attack, and then they kind of traded controlling the game for getting counterattacks and drawing their opponent up so that Hani Mukhtar could have space to run into. And that was pretty much their attacking blueprint from 2020 until 2023 when it stopped, when Hani's
stopped working.
Hani's form fell off a cliff for some legitimate reasons. And everything kind of around them struggled. So Callahan has come in and just given them a lot more structure. They want to play with the ball. Everybody says they want to play with the ball, but they've actually, so far, they've done it from what we've seen already. They are more organized in possession. They have more clear ideas. They avoid crossing as much as possible and look to kind of create kind of consistent openings around the box. I think defensively, though, you're seeing a lot more of a high press, and that's a big change. Obviously, it kind of makes sense for Callahan coming from the Union style of play and coming up with Jim Curtin back when he kind of made the change from more of a possession-based team to more of the high-pressing team. Callahan was there kind of for all of that. So I think he has some maybe pressing roots, and Nashville want to press. You saw them do it a ton against the Revolution. So I think it's just a more modern approach and one that will play young players a lot more than Gary Smith ever did. I think that's probably the biggest criticism fans would have of him, is just that he didn't play young players. And other than maybe Jack Mayer or Alistair Johnston, who were kind of some of the first players on the roster, and you kind of had to play them because you were an expansion team and didn't have a ton of options. There was really no minutes for young players who weren't developed fully to come in. Like Nashville just relied super heavily on veterans. I think it kind of limited the type of players that they could sign. And when they did sign young players, you would see them kind of come to Nashville and stagnate for a little bit. That already changed under Callahan. You saw it last year with guys like Julian Gaines kind of coming through the team, but even Saturday in their season opener, I mean, Matt Corcoran, 19-year-old kid they just bought from Birmingham Legion. He started the match and became the youngest player / first teenager ever to start a match for Nashville. Wyatt Meyer is 23, but He was just signed out of the 2024 Super Draft on Friday. He started on Saturday. I think you're starting to see just a different approach. Just a more modern approach from Nashville, and I think it's probably one that will maximize the resources of a mid-market team that's not going to compete with kind of the LAs or Atlantas of the world, but it should make them more competitive with the rest of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I can't say my eyebrows didn't raise a bit more when I saw Corcoran's addition to the team, right? Because we don't see a whole lot of USL to MLS transfers, frankly.
Sure.
It's and then getting the start and making an impact in week one, just could be a phenomenal story. And for covering the Red Bulls for as long as we have here, we understand what youth development really is. We understand the power of the academy. We understand all of that.
Better than anyone, really.
Better than a lot. Is there an academy in place in Nashville that's producing anyone of any ability?
Yeah, so I think the academy for Nashville was maybe behind some other expansion teams. I think other teams came in and got their academy up and running before their team actually even got on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Nashville didn't start their academy until 2020, and that was with kind of the U13, U14 age range. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense from a timeline perspective. If you're signing a bunch of 13-year-olds 5 years ago, they're just now
Right.
starting to age into the they're aging into being able to play first team minutes. So they have 3 homegrown signings who came out of their academy. Adem Sipic was on the bench on Saturday. He didn't play. Isaiah Jones is a midfielder. He made his debut last year and played a handful of minutes. But the most recent signing is a defender called Chris Applewhite. They actually kind of pulled him out of the DC United Academy and brought him into Nashville about 2 or 3 years ago. And he is super highly rated. Just turned 17. He started more minutes than any other center back for Huntsville City last year in MLS Next Pro. And that was as a 16-year-old for most of the year. And what I've seen from him, he looks like he's going to be, you never want to kind of overhype kids too
right.
early. I think he has as
Looks
much
like the real
promise
deal.
of I would like, not just for Nashville, but I would say I would put him like maybe even national team potential, just kind of the way his ability on the ball is pretty rare for a center back. So I think he's a guy who maybe not this year, but within the next, I would say 2-3 years should become a pretty regular name to see in Nashville lineups.
What can we expect on Saturday at Sports Illustrated Stadium, which we're struggling to get accustomed
how do you feel
to?
about that?
I mean, honestly, I have no issue with $100 million over 13 years. I think that's a pretty good deal. It's just going to take some time. I would prefer a brand name like that than a DraftKings or a FanDuel Stadium, to be perfectly honest with you. It's the ticketing brand of Sports Illustrated, not the magazine, which I read religiously from the time that I was a preteen until the time that it didn't really exist anymore. So it's a little strange, but it could be worse, I guess. But nevertheless, coming into New York, facing a team they haven't scored against in 4 years, as I had mentioned, a bunch of scoreless draws between these teams, a couple of 1-0 wins. Nashville's never beaten New York in their short history. I'm just kind of curious if it is going to a hard press. It will be very interesting to see that this match is going to turn into a car crash, basically.
Yeah, I think they've been car crashes for the other reasons. Two sides who didn't want to really play with the ball,
right?
One side who wanted to press, and one side who just wanted to sit as deep as possible. And so, what do you do there? I think Nashville's not like an all-out pressing team. I wouldn't categorize them as kind of that Red Bulls, or I guess now Philadelphia with Bradley Carnell. I think those are kind of like the pinnacles of pressing. But I mean, Red Bulls want to play with the ball more now.
Yes,
under Sandro Soares. So I don't know. I think it'll be two teams who want to press, but also are okay playing in possession. So I think it should be a little bit more watchable than maybe in years past.
How's our boy Alex Muil doing?
I am pretty excited about him. I know it's maybe weird to say for a 29-year-old, but he looked really good. I think he scored 5 goals in the 11 games under BJ Callahan last year, and looks like a pretty important piece of the puzzle. He's kind of been starting as a left wing. They play a 4-2-2-2 I always
Oh,
forget.
very much aligned to
Sure, yeah.
Howard.
So he's kind of like he has a pretty free role on the left wing, and he actually comes across all the way over to the right wing a lot and overloads kind of with Eddie Tagseth. But he looks like a pretty important piece of things, and I think maybe Callahan has given him a little bit of confidence that he hadn't had in the past. Because I think he's a technically really good player and has just never really been put in the best positions to succeed, other than just kind of running super hard. So I think he should be able to show a little bit more of that this year. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes close to 10 goals or something like that in all competitions.
It'd be terrific for him. It will be interesting. I mean, it certainly isn't Wheel's first time back at Red Bulls. It'll be interesting to see how the fans pick up on him, especially if he starts making an impact in the game. That'll be interesting. And then, I mean, Sean Davis was dealt away, currently without a job. I'm curious what you think about Davis's performance with Nashville. And I mean, they wooed him to get him to leave the only club he had ever known when he left the Red Bulls for Nashville a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, brought the private jet out, took him to a Predators game in town, all of that stuff. I mean, you know this. Sean is just like one of the genuinely nicer guys that you'll cover in MLS. I know he had he came into Nashville initially and looked like a huge piece of the puzzle. I mean, he pushed Dax McCarty out of the starting lineup, and played really well to start. But I think, especially once Callahan took over, you kind of noticed his limitations in possession a lot more. He's great playing against the ball, and I mean that's how he came up with Red Bulls, as kind of playing against the ball and a pressing specialist. And I think in possession, it's maybe more where he struggled to break lines. And I don't think there was a natural fit for him under Callahan. It seemed in theory like it could have worked out with the Galaxy, kind of in a more holding midfielder role, but I guess that didn't work out. I was really surprised to see how that ended. But I mean, I think there are going to be plenty of teams who are probably already on the phone with him trying to figure out how to get him on their team.
I hope so, because as you said, one of the genuine nice guys. So, so for Nashville to get their first ever win against the Red Bulls on Saturday, they will need to successfully do what? And please don't say score more goals, because I know you're better than that.
Well, Mark, the team who scores the most goals wins.
Walked right into it.
No, so I think they started the process pretty well against the Revs. They looked pretty good in possession. I think we already talked about Matt Corcoran and Wyatt Meyer, but getting some of their midfielders healthy would be helpful. I mean, they were without Gaston Brugman, Brian Acosta, and Patrick Yazbek, who were like the 3 first choice guys for kind of those 2 central midfield roles. So I think getting some more ability to break lines and progress the ball from midfield would be helpful. I think also it's just kind of seeing Hani Mukhtar and Andy Nahar and Eddie Tagseth continue to build chemistry, because they really focus down that right-hand side. That's where most of their buildup happens. And so it's about progressing the ball through that right-hand side and then finding a clear pass to Sam Surridge, who's usually kind of hanging out on the back post. But they have to do a better job of finding his feet in the box. It was a lot of just kind of hitting crosses to him and hoping he can head the ball. And I think he kind of gets stereotyped a little bit as kind of a 6'3" English striker from the Championship. And he's fine in the air, but he's really, really good with the ball at his feet. And so I think Nashville need to play to his feet more if they can. I mean, he got a bunch of decent half chances against the Revs. If he gets 1 or 2 with his feet, I think they're probably in good shape.
Tell us a little bit about 615 and the new venture. It's really, really exciting to see someone go deep into a city's sports and soccer culture. So I'm curious how it's going.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, we've been honestly blown away by the reception that we got to start the season. I think we probably underestimated the Nashville market a little bit. We set some kind of goals that we wanted to hit before the season, and we had like 4x those within the first couple weeks. So
congrats.
Yeah, thank you. It's been just encouraging to see, I guess, that people in Nashville like care this much about soccer. You kind of knew, I mean, 30,000 seat stadium, it's usually pretty full. So like you kind of knew that there were people who were at least casually interested in soccer, but to see like people signing up and wanting like pretty in-depth coverage of the team has been really cool. So yeah, it's been really fun. We have a fantastic team of writers and photographers and podcasters and everything So it's been fun seeing it all come together. Yeah, and I couldn't do it without those guys.
For sure. Great. Do you have a prediction for Saturday night?
1-1 draw. I don't know. Feels on brand.
It does feel on brand. Just having you guys scoring would be against type, though. So we'll
Right.
certainly see.
Baby steps.
Ben Wright covers everything Nashville SC and Nashville soccer at 615. Where can folks find you, sir?
Yeah, so check out 615soccer.com. You spell it out. It's not the numbers, so
Right.
watch out for that. You can find me on most of the social media. I'm trying to wean myself off of Twitter as much as possible, so check me out on Blue Skies, just Ben Wright.
Awesome. Thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate it. And perhaps we'll chat for the return date later this season.
Let's do it. Thanks.
All right. We've got more Seeing Red coming up after this short break. Keep it here. Back on Seeing Red, the New York Soccer Roundup. It's so refreshing to once again have a traditional show back, getting Red Bull fans ready to go for Saturday night. It's really exciting. It's a whole new year. This may be the last year that the MLS season goes from February to December. I think starting next year, it's realistic to think that MLS will have a spring tournament and then start their season all over after the World Cup and align with the rest of the European calendar going fall to spring. So enjoy this, the 30th season of MLS and the 16th season of Seeing Red as we get going. We ask you to send us your thoughts anytime at seeingredny@gmail.com. I will tell you that our email box was conspicuously empty this year. I think this week. I think people are have to get back in the swing of things. We do have a couple of Blue Sky responses that I want to share with you when it comes to asking who the Bull of the Week may be. Matt G says Bull is Noah Ayla, nearly drew a red. Honorable mention to Tim Parker. Welcome back. Tim Parker did not play in the match, but nevertheless, Noah Ayla, I thought acquitted himself well. I will tell you, nearly drew a red. We should certainly talk about the fact that the Red Bulls were very unhappy with the reffing. There were a number of times during the game where Red Bull players were stomped on from Nashville players without calls. Did you have a thought on that?
Yes, I was also one of them. I think he did poorly.
Yeah, the refs were not great, and the Red Bulls definitely took note of it. They did not. Lewis Morgan prefaced by saying, I don't want to get fined or anything like that, but it wasn't great. It wasn't great. Ed Ritter said, no one stood out particularly for me, but Choupo-Moting going 90 is very good news. I agree. MJNES says, agree with Ed. I was impressed that Forsberg was still charging around the field in stoppage time, but I'll give it to Morgan. He was active all game and maybe on another night earns a PK. Indeed. Pete Mamola, longtime follower of the show, says it wasn't bad. It wasn't great either. Three best frontline players we've had in a while and no one to unlock the defense. Got to give him some time. Mark Sheffel says, my Bull is a faint glimmer of hope. I think people don't remember that the Red Bulls played an MLS Cup like 8 weeks ago. And I think that's kind of nutty. I think, it's certainly okay to, I mean, there was definitely some woe is me going on. For sure, but it just feels strange to me that people were so down.
First
right?
match, do we really have to be really harsh on them? Come on, losing 1-0 against Cincy, it's perfectly normal. That's on opening the season opener. No need to create panic. No need to be in panic.
There's nothing to panic about, right?
Come on.
At all. And hopefully home cooking will be good for the Red Bulls.
Yes.
We do want to share, of course, the celebration of life for Joe Goldstein is this Saturday in Metuchen, New Jersey from 11 to 3 at Haley's Harp and Pub in Metuchen. So if you are a Seeing Red listener and you would like to come and share your final respects with about Joe Goldstein, it's really going to be a celebration. It's not a wake, it's not a funeral, it's a celebration of Joe's life. And if you can join us in Metuchen, again, that's Haley's Harp and Pub, open from 11 to 3 this Saturday. We would really appreciate it. Gustavo, you call Saturday's match a
1-0 win, New York.
I'm going to call it a 1-1 draw. We'd certainly like to thank Ben Wright from 615 Soccer for stopping by, and Zach Feldman for all the stats. Enjoy the day. It's going to be a little chillier than we predicted. We threw out a 44-degree temperature weather report earlier in the week. It's going to be 36. It's going to be very cold. Bring your woolies. It's going to be windy. There won't be any rain, but this fool's spring that we've had in New Jersey for the last few days, that is definitely going away. So for Gustavo, I'm Mark Fishkin. Thank you so much for watching episode 602 of Seeing Red. We're so glad to be back. We will be back next week. Let's go Red Bulls. Have a good one, everyone. Good night.